everyone, and welcome to our summer 2022 Tufts Pre-College STEM live Q&A and webinar. I'm Olivia Letourneau. I'm the Marketing Associate for Tufts University's Pre-College Programs, and along with Sally and our amazing program directors, we will be hosting tonight's webinar. We are thrilled that you're joining us tonight to learn more about our engineering, coding, and mini med school pre-college programs. And not only do we have a lot of great information for you tonight, but we're looking forward to you guys driving the second half of this session, which will be a live Q&A with all of our program directors. So at any point tonight, if you have any questions, you can throw them in the Q&A box and we'll answer everything at the end. And with that, let's get started with introducing the rest of our panelists tonight.
Hi, everyone. Good evening. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy days and schedules to join us to learn a little bit more about our pre-college programs in the STEM fields and what we might have to offer you this summer. My name is Sally Kim, and I am one of the program administrators for Tufts Pre-College Programs. And without further ado, I will go ahead and turn it over to our program staff, starting with Barry, to introduce themselves.
Hi, everybody. I'm Barry. I'm an associate professor of medical education, and my background's in immunology. And I co-direct Mini Medical School with Emily Kate McDonough, who's on the call with us here. Will introduce herself, but it's a pleasure to meet everybody. I look forward to telling you more about Mini Med School.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jennifer Cross. I am a research assistant professor at the Tufts Center for Engineering Education and Outreach. My background, my background is in robotics. So I teach the EDL session, the Engineering Design Lab session, where we do robotics and cool stuff. I do research on educational robotics. So yeah.
Hi, welcome everyone. I'm Emily Kate McDonough. I co-direct the Mini Med School program with Barry Jacques, and I'm a program director at the Center for Science Education. So I develop curricula for high school students, and my background is in microbiology and cinema studies.
Hi all, I'm Meredith Portsmore. I am the director of Tufts Center for Engineering Education and Outreach, and I work in the engineering investigations program, as well as help make sure EDL gets off the ground. Both of those live at our center with some great folks leading them. Long ago and far away, I was a mechanical engineer who got really excited about education. So this is an awesome set of programs that we do each summer that combines all the amazing research and technology and work we're doing. And I'll pass it over to Ethan.
Awesome. Thank you. Hi, my name is Ethan Danahy, sometimes go by Dr. E, and I'm a research associate professor here at Tufts. And my background is computer science and electrical engineering. And at Tufts, I teach first year courses. So I teach a robotics first year course and an introduction to computation, a programming course for our first year students. And I love that transition from high school into college. And I take some of that energy and apply it here to the pre-college programs as well. And I'm involved with the engineering design lab and the engineering investigations as well. And I noticed that McGee is next on this list here. And so McGee is one of our program administrators, program director for engineering as well. So you might get some emails or some communication from her as you're sort of navigating through that process. Thanks.
Awesome. Thank you all so much. And without further ado, our agenda for this evening. So we'll go through all of the great programs that we have in the STEM field tonight. So it'll be a quick overview, some application process following that, and then we'll end with the Q&A. So we're going to get started with our Engineering Design Lab.
So yeah, the Engineering Design Lab project, our workshop program. We have 2 sessions, and we have a focus on building a cool project. So we have some robotics experience that we do. So we have it looks like we're probably going to be using a modular robotics kit, which uses the Raspberry Pi, and we get folks started on, starting with some basics for robotics. So if you've never done robotics before, we kind of start at that ground level to build experience and confidence using a lot of cool robotics tools and doing different applications of robotics, but then also moving and leaving kind of a high ceiling so that students can then do things with those skills. So if you've already coming in and you have some prior programming or prior robotics experience, I think you'll also find that this program allows you to do more and lets you explore more with support from the Tufts faculty and students to go farther with your robotics knowledge if you're coming in with existing. If you don't have any, that should not scare you, because we also support along the way. And it's very much project focused. We do a lot of small cumulative activities with the tools, doing little robotic and engineering tasks along the way. And each time kind of adding and building and doing more until the final week is really focused on a final project where you get to explore and you get support doing something with these engineering skills. So often electromechanical, some programming, perhaps some sensing, and really solving a problem that's interesting to you, taking place in the NOLAP makerspace on Tufts campus, hopefully, hoping for in person. We're very excited. We've been virtual for 2 years. And so that giving us the tool set to do even more for the project.
Yeah, Jen, I'll just jump in and I'll say that the opportunity to be back on campus and inside the on-campus, our big on-campus makerspace is pretty huge in terms of taking it from just a robotics and programming course to then also introducing more fabrication into that. So we have access to 3D printers and laser cutters and the woodworking tools and other things. So we're expecting that that's going to change the direction that some of those projects are going to go. So after a week of sort of skill building, we'll then allow students to and to collaborate in groups to really choose their own direction and pick projects that are personally meaningful to them. The other piece I'll just mention is that all the materials for the EDL, the Engineering Design Lab, the students keep after the fact. So the Raspberry Pi and the robotics and all of that, meaning they can keep learning after the weeks are done. So we'll give exposure to a lot of different ideas, but you don't get to go super deep in just 2 weeks, but then you can keep the teaching materials afterwards and have an opportunity to keep exploring after the fact.
That's awesome. And moving on from there, we'll talk about the engineering investigations.
So you heard about EDL. Really exciting, really cool projects. I go to the final session every year to see guitar playing robots and piano playing robots and book assistive technology robots. So really cool technologies. Engineering investigations is geared a little differently. So what we do here, right, is we're going through all the engineering disciplines. We really want folks to see, like, what is engineering, right? You may have heard about race cars, rockets, and robots. You've seen engineers and maybe these really traditional pathways, but there's so much more to engineering, you know. So what are engineers doing in the cancer research field? What are engineering doing in assistive technologies? So really having a chance to go through, and we go through, usually each topic gets a day or so where we have speakers come in and talk about the work they're doing in that field. There's hands-on labs, everything from figuring out how concentrations of coffee works to looking at different ways that biomedical engineers analyze disease. So all kinds of great stuff. This one actually has only been done remotely so far. So this summer is a whole great new set of in-person and hands-on planning that we're having. And we want folks to walk away from this really like knowing, what are all these kinds of engineering? This one's always fascinating because you're going to find some things that you love, and you're going to also find other things where you're like, yeah, I don't want to do that, which is actually really valuable, right? As you're planning your future, to be like, oh, I really love, human factors engineering, where I'm, thinking about how things interact with humans. I really love engineering entrepreneurship, where I get to think about these things, but maybe some other ones, aren't quite as exciting. So it's a really great way to try a lot of kinds of engineering in a concentrated space. It will also explore the NOLAP makerspace in a smaller way, so that folks can see, the disciplines that interact with fabrication. And it also does a final presentation, right? So after you've seen all these kinds of engineering, there's an opportunity to dive a little bit deeper and say, okay, I like that project we did using CAD to reimagine, interfaces. I'd like to do more with that. Or, ooh, yeah, I'm really excited about ethics and engineering, and I want to think about, where do those go in? Or I'm really excited about finding bridge design and to really go farther there. So it's really designed that way to be this tasting menu of engineering then that goes allows you to really go deeper and get this sense of what happens there. Anything else to add on to that, Ethan?
Yeah, I mean, I think you really covered it, and even just in your handful of examples, you can sort of see that breadth of what engineering entails, right? Engineering is a huge umbrella that has so many sub-disciplines, many of which are departments and majors here at Tufts, and so we're tapping into that and giving that really nice exposure across the board. And now that it's going to be in person, we get to go into some of the labs and see this stuff in action and have a chance to actually do it and experience it, which is really exciting. So, and it's tough. You know, we ask these 16, 17, 18-year-olds to like decide what you want to be for the rest of your life. And those are really hard decisions to make. And so programs like this really give you that landscape view to help you understand what resonates and what you like for moving forward. So.
And I will say you can't make a mistake if you're trying to decide which way to go, right? I mean, if you're a beginner, right? Either of these sessions take in beginners and there's definitely different pathways to go through both of them. So just think about, you know, as you hear the description, which way ignites your passions and what you're trying to get out of your summer. All right, thanks all.
Thank you guys so much for all of that. And just a reminder, if you have any questions about our engineering programs or any of the other programs we're talking about tonight, feel free to put them in the chat or the QA box and we will get to them at the end. But now I'm going to throw it over to Sally to talk about our Coding 101 program.
Yeah, thanks, Olivia. I can definitely take a little bit of time to speak about our Coding 101 intensive. So this summer, it will be 2 weeks long, open to both residential and commuter students from July 24th to August 5th. The Coding 101 intensive will equip students generally of all levels of experience with in-demand programming skills needed to build apps or other sort of databases and systems that solve real-world problems. Students will learn or expand their knowledge of the coding language Python. And we chose Python because it's one of the most popular programming languages in use today, and it's used for mobile apps, web and software development, as well as desktop graphic and user interfaces. So this week will be split up into two. So week one, students will start with the foundations of basic programming building blocks in Python, setting up the computing environment for programming. And in the afternoon, students can also expect to have various guest lectures that will introduce students to different aspects of coding and programming. And that will be combined with general lectures on coding, as well as skill building sessions to further solidify their knowledge and footing in Python. In the second week, you'll see another series of lectures that are focused on specific topics which utilize coding, ranging from data visualization and interaction and machine learning to cryptography. And in the afternoon, in the second week, students will participate in various tech treks of Boston-based companies, where they will explore what we can do with the skills we learn and why that matters. Students will also work on a final project on their second week, which they will then showcase at the end of the program. And last summer, students chose from a variety of different topics, from creating a website for themselves to creating a first iteration of an app that they would want to design. And I would imagine that similar topics would be available again this summer for students as well. Upon successful completion of this program, additionally, students will receive Tufts pre-matriculation credit for their work. And how Tufts pre-matriculation credit works is if students complete this program and do receive credit, if they do then enroll at Tufts University, they can actually apply the credits that they've earned from this program towards their graduation requirements. If a student decides to attend another institution, however, the evaluation of this program and the credits that they received through Coding 101 will be subject to the reviews of that particular institution and that particular university or college. But yeah, Coding 101, we're really excited to have it in person this summer. And we are especially excited to have our tech treks be in person this summer as opposed to virtually as it has been the past couple of years.
Awesome. Thank you, Sally. We're now going to kick it over to Mini Med School and I'll kick it over to Barry and EK.
So this is the first year we're going to be running Mini Med in person, as well as we're still running our virtual version of the program. So we're pretty excited that we'll have an in-person offering. There'll get to be more hands-on activities, which we'll tell you about. Both programs are very rigorous. They have full days and a lot of interaction with your peers and TAs and professors and doctors. They're very exciting. Lots of students give us positive feedback. So both programs will have a set of medical student TAs who are guiding you through the various aspects of the program. So these are just our TAs from 2020, the first year we ran the program. And last year we had another wonderful set of TAs, and this year we'll be recruiting again a wonderful set. So it's a really great opportunity for you to get to ask questions directly to people who are currently experiencing medical school.
And last year, all of them but one were Tufts rising first year medical students. So they just completed the first year at Tufts. So they're right in between going back and doing more clinical stuff.
So we have different, we call them strands, different aspects of the curriculum. So for the in-person version, we have medical and career awareness lectures, which is everyone attends together. And then we have small group sessions. So you'll be working on a medical lab where Barry will tell you a little bit about those different things, some clinical experiences, some patient case studies, which is, you'll be working in groups to problem solve. A patient comes in with some symptoms and you try to figure out what's wrong with them. And then the capstone project is the video you'll be working on. And you'll be working in groups of 3 on that. And so the virtual version of the program has many of the same strands. The only thing that's really missing from it are those clinical experiences. And the medical lab is just one component. So there'll be an anatomy lab and a microbiology lab for the in-person version. And for the virtual, it's just the microbiology lab. We still send you lab kits and you get to do microbiology in your home, which is pretty unique to our program and very exciting. So it's still pretty hands-on. And for the virtual version of the program, all of the all class lectures will be recorded. So if you can't make them, you can watch them at a different time. Of course, you wouldn't be able to ask questions if you watch the recorded version. But again, you'll be working in small groups led by a TA, and you'll have a capstone project video that you'll be working on with a group of 3 students.
So, I'm going to talk a little bit more detail about the medical career awareness and lectures and the different strands of the program. But I want to emphasize, when we were first putting this together, we thought a lot about what will be a good experience that will give you an idea of what being in medical school is like. And we get exposed to veterinary medicine, dental medicine, biomedical research, and the student life of a medical student and what they did in college to go on to health sciences and medical school. So they're the real deal, really cool talks. So first here we have our career awareness lectures. So this strand is our lecture strand. It's our only, lecture strand. The rest of this is hands-on, minds-on kind of stuff that you're doing in your small groups with your medical student TA. But you hear about really important stuff like science communication. You'll see demonstrations from our live anatomy lab, live demonstrations from our human anatomy lab. We have patient presentations, patients talking with a clinician. So you can see how that interaction happens. This is like the most exciting part of first year medical school, most students say. Okay, getting to see patient presentations is a really powerful and moving thing. People who've had transplants, for example. Our surgical team zooms in and gives case studies of their real events that they've been experiencing and puts together a really cool suite of series on that. We have career panels with medical students and our Dean of Admissions talks at the medical school about what medical schools are up to and what they're looking for. Our medical labs has the 2 sets. So the in-person program we'll have the addition of a hands-on anatomy lab. Both the virtual and the in-person program have a microbiology diagnostic lab. You know, figuring out doing microbiology plating like at a hospital. If someone sends a sample to the lab to say, what antibiotic should I treat a patient with? This is the process you'll go through, figuring out how to treat Stan, a character in this book. You'll have to go through all the same biosafety training to do this that our Tufts students go through. Next to the clinical experiences, this is the only part of the program that's really just for the in-person programming. This is brand new. It will be run in our sim center. You'll be intubating patients, dealing with complicated cases, doing stitches, doing some wound repair and trauma stuff. We're still working out the details on that, but we're thinking this is probably going to be very popular and exciting. I'm excited to see it. Both programs have patient case studies, PBLs, which is a common type of case that we give our medical students. So you can learn about real diseases. And we have a focus on infectious disease. We picked that before COVID, I promise, okay? Because infectious disease crosscuts all types of medicine. All types of medicine. People have to deal with infectious disease and immunology. That's why we picked it.
And we're both experts.
And it doesn't hurt that, you know, that these are our fields, of course, and we know the people in the fields for sure. Where am I here? Oh, and the last thing, and certainly not last but least, but if you haven't checked out the capstone videos on the website or on our website, you should check them out. They're amazing. It's truly amazing. Making a short 2 or 3 minute talk on a topic, I was, you know, very apprehensive. I mean, I'm not a video expert, but it's true. Our students are able to, in a matter of 2 weeks, learn how to write a script, film, edit the film, and put together really engaging, creative, cool stuff. And at the end of both programs, we have a gala, and a gala, you know, where you get to watch your fellow students' films and vote on them for a number of criteria, and the winners get showcased. In the in-person program, we'll do this kind of like a TED session where we'll have a number of rooms running to screen the videos and then watch the last ones live. Hopefully you're, in all cases, virtual or in person, your family comes. It's really cool when parents and siblings and stuff come to check out the hard work that you've done to make with the videos. Okay.
I will now throw over to Sally again to talk about the application process. And right after this will be our live Q&A. So feel free to get your questions in at any time. Sally?
Yeah, of course. Thanks, Olivia, for throwing it back to me. So yeah, you've heard all about our programs. You are super interested in applying to one of them, and you want to know how to do just that. So for our applications, first things first, you'll head over to our application landing page to register for your account. You can find that link right now on the screen on this current slide that we're on in this webinar, or you can also find this link on all of our program websites with the button Apply Now. Once you've registered for an account, you can go ahead and log into our application system and begin your application. You'll put in some basic personal information, family information, school information, and then you'll select your program. And to supplement your application, you'll be asked to provide contact information for a recommender, for a letter of recommendation, as well as a school official who will then upload your transcripts. Some programs like the Mini Med School may require additional application materials or requirements, such as a brief personal statement or a specific class requirement on your academic transcripts. And additionally, as a part of your application, your parents will also need to fill out the parent permission form, and your recommender and your school official will be prompted to upload your letter of recommendation and your transcript respectively. Once we've received all of these materials from you, we will return your admissions decision within 10 business days. And upon admission, you'll be asked to submit your deposit as well as some important enrollment forms, followed by full program payment. And just like that, you'll be ready to study with us this summer at Tufts. So without further ado, I will go ahead and turn it back to Olivia and the rest of our program directors so we can kick off our live Q&A session.
Great. Thank you, Sally. So the first question I saw come in was asking about age eligibility. So what age do our students have to be in our program in terms of their grade and what grade they're entering?
Yeah, so in terms of grade requirements, generally across all of our pre-college programs, we do require students be at least a rising sophomore in order to participate in our programs. Out of all of the programs that are here tonight, specifically, the Engineering Design Lab, the Engineering Investigations Intensive, as well as the Coding 101 Intensive are currently accepting applications from rising sophomores, juniors, seniors, and graduated spring 2022 high school graduates. The mini med school, however, has a slightly more stringent requirement in terms of eligibility. Students do need to be rising juniors, seniors, or graduating spring 2022 high school graduates. And they must have 1 year of biology completed on their academic transcripts. Another popular question we receive with that is, if a student is currently taking biology right now, would they be eligible for the program? And the answer is, as long as they have completed biology before programs start, they are eligible to apply for the mini med school intensive. So those are the current eligibility requirements in terms of age, as well as specific requirements that we may have for some of our programs here tonight.
Awesome. And is the Midi Med School program more of research than shadowing?
There won't be any formal shadowing, meaning you won't be in the hospital with clinicians seeing patients, especially in the time of COVID still happening in the hospitals. We won't have formalized shadowing. You're going to see patient presentations, and you'll be really experiencing what the common day-to-day life looks more like for a first-year medical student. So you'll be going to medical classes, hearing talks on topics that medical students would hear talks on, playing a part in the anatomy lab. The closest thing we have, and actually I think really far better than a shadowing experience in many ways, is the chance to work with the hands-on STEM lab simulators to get to be in the roles of a clinician. And you'll see many career types, right? So you will see research, you will see clinical folks, vets, and dentists to get to hear about what they're up to, how they became what they are.
Yeah,
Great
I
question.
would also add that the capstone project is pretty research heavy. So you do have to do some deep diving into a topic and figuring out what you want to research. So there is a little bit of that component in it as well.
That's great. And who is teaching the engineering and coding programs? Are they Tufts instructors?
I can definitely speak for the engineering ones, and then maybe Sally, you'll jump in for the coding ones. So we're sharing responsibility so that you get exposure to multiple people across the university. And yes, they are all instructors. So for the engineering design lab, we teach a variety of undergraduate engineering classes. And then for engineering investigations, we're tapping into different research labs here and different programs and finding people in there that are either instructors or researchers to come into the program, and all of it's being supervised by those of us who are professors here and are also very interested in engineering education, so have that education lens of how to teach.
Yes, and in terms of our Coding 101 intensive, generally our program instructors historically have been very highly qualified graduate students in the Department of Computer Science at Tufts University. We are currently in the process of interviewing and finalizing our program instructor for Coding 101 this summer, but we are expecting the program instructor for Coding 101 to be either a graduate student or a postdoc in the computer science department. But throughout the course of a student's time in the Coding 101 intensive, they will also be hearing from various, faculty lectures from other faculty members in the Department of Math and Computer Science, and also potentially engineering at Tufts University, as well as hearing from other industry leaders throughout the course of their second week in those tech treks, where students will be visiting those Boston area based companies.
Great. And Sally, while you're here, is Virtual Coding 101 still available this year?
I believe I may have answered that question, but unfortunately this summer we are only offering in-person opportunities for our Coding 101 intensive.
Great. Thank you for repeating that. Appreciate it. And for residential students at the mini med school, what would a daily schedule look like? Will there be any free time, and what access to different facilities, such as Tufts gyms and other Tufts amenities, will students have?
Yeah, so the students, you'll definitely have access to the gyms and other Tufts amenities. I'm not sure exactly what's available, but you do have access to the gym. The day itself is really quite full, so there'll be pretty packed programming from about 9 in the morning until about 5 or 5:30 in the afternoon. And there's a break for lunch, but that's really about it. And some transition, like 15-minute transition times between different sessions. So if you want to make use of the gym or the track, try to plan that either for the morning or before dinner after our sessions are over.
And then we're expecting, in addition to the more academic side of the medical school experience, you'll be able to explore the area around the campus with your TA. And then nights and weekends, you'll have social activities as well with your classmates and peers. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe Olivia and Sally, you can talk a little bit more about that, about the nights, what it looks like in the dorms, as well as the weekend overtime.
Yeah, so I can speak a little bit about that. So right now we are sort of in the final stages of confirming all of those aspects of what a student's night or even a student's weekend will look like with our residential partner Summer Discovery. In our previous in-person iteration, which the last of which happened in 2019, after programs, we our residential partners did host various social activities and things such as game nights, movie nights, things of that nature for students to participate in outside of the classroom. And I do believe that we are going to be doing something similar again with our new residential partner for this summer, as well as having various weekend excursions or trips. I believe a few summers ago in 2019, when we had our last in-person iteration, students had options to do weekend excursions into the city of Boston and tour around the city. We also did have weekend excursions to fun places like Six Flags as well. All of those details are currently, though, in the process of being confirmed. And when all of that information is officially approved, we will be sending out communication to students and families that have applied to our programs and will be attending with more details.
Great. And does virtual mini med school allow you to visit campus or the libraries?
I've never been asked that before, so that's a fantastic question. I don't know. So if you do virtual mini med and you're in the area, we can explore that and see if that would be possible. We did have summer programs last year that were virtual, and we were able to have students through normal visiting policies come to campus and check stuff out. So I don't know. I'll have to look into that. It's an awesome question.
Yeah. And it might depend on the COVID policies at the time of the program.
Yeah.
Makes sense. So we'll look into that one further for you. Ethan, I have a specific question for you. They would love to hear some examples of the past projects in engineering.
For sure. This was sort of a second part of an earlier question I was typing the answer to, where because during the first week and into the second week, we'll do lots of like little skill builders and other mini projects that we pick, and we've picked and structured very specifically. But we do want to make sure students have choice over what they create. And I love being back in person because of that ability to collaborate and communicate with others in person. So what we'll do as we head towards the final project is we'll get all the students together and we'll do some really big brainstorming processes, right? Tapping into the engineering design process and trying to demonstrate some of those aspects, trying to solve real world problems. Granted, we're not going to actually solve them in a 2-week program, but we're going to start down that path and find out where students' interests lie. And what we often find is that students have similar interests, and so they start to group together, gather, and work in small groups towards solving some sort of problem. So I'll speak to back in 2019 when we did it in person. We saw projects around. We had a veterinary school professor come and talk about one of the problems that they had with their students is actually training them to listen to a dog's heart rate, because getting a dog in the room, a dog that will sit still and participate, as well as there's a variety of different types of dog heart rates. And so these students in EDL actually took a stuffed animal dog, took out some of the stuffing, embedded electronics and a speaker inside of it. They laser cut rib cage so that the med students could actually find the exact right spot of where the heart would be. And then the veterinary doctor could actually, through a remote interface, load up different heart rate sounds. And so the med students could actually practice listening for different types of heart rates on this stuffed animal dog. So what was really cool is students taking their hearing from a potential client and a problem out in the real world, developing a solution, prototyping, engineering it, and actually going through that whole process. And so there was a bunch of different projects around thinking about solutions that we could put out in the world to help humanity, basically, and everything leveraging the motors and the sensors and the programming, image processing. Autonomous vehicles was a hot topic that people were talking about and interested in, and so a subgroup went into how do we actually make these robots sort of self-aware of each other and navigation. So really spanning across that wide gambit. Jen, any projects that stood out to you that you'd like to highlight?
The two, I think kind of similar to what you were saying, Ethan. I really am always struck by when students are blending engineering with their existing hobbies. So in the past, let's see, last year there was a student who was interested in fencing. And so they built, I kid you not, a robotic fencing opponent that could drive back and forth and did some amount of scoring for them. So that was really cool. There was a student that really loved, I think, long distance biking. And so they made this like bicycle odometer. So they, or speedometer and odometer. So they put this cool like gear piece on the front wheel of their bicycle and then had programmed sensing so that it could tell how fast the wheel was spinning and send it that information back to give advice, I think, on, you know, whether you should shift or not the bicycle. And then Meredith already mentioned the student who made, I don't actually, I can never quite, I think it was a balaclava. It's not a guitar. It's a different musical instrument plucking, because apparently some of the music you have to pluck very fast. And so they had a robot that would do the really fast plucking so they could really focus on the fingering. And I really loved that one as well. Yeah.
Those are incredible. Some of the next questions I see, I'm hoping maybe all of our program directors could speak on. There's a lot of questions about selectivity of our programs and how many people are admitted to each. So could everyone maybe take a stab for their own programs of, you know, what admittance is like and how selective they are, and any special additions they need to their applications, like essays or personal statements?
So maybe Emily Kate can talk more about the essays and personal statements. But last year for Mini Med, when it was just virtual, we had about 700 applications for 130 spots. This year we have 90 spots for the in-person Mini Med program or so. And it's filling very fast, extremely fast. Okay, we've already had, I think, 240 applications for that program. The virtual program, we haven't set an actual cap on the virtual program this summer, but probably around 100 or so. Students would be on that. And EK, did you want to speak to the application, the letters and transcripts and such?
Yeah, sure. So, you know, there are some basic requirements for admittance into Mini Med School. You know, we look at your transcripts and make sure you've done reasonably well in your science classes. You need to have taken a year of biology. You know, hopefully your letter of recommendation from your teacher doesn't, you know, speaks highly of you. And so I look for those things. I don't think I've actually rejected any student this summer. So, you know, as long as you pass those bars, it's fine. I do look for, required this year is a statement of interest in our program. And so, you know, it is pretty important that you think pretty carefully about why you're interested in the program. And that can be anywhere from a paragraph to something a bit longer. It's been fun to read the longer letters from students. But, you know, as long as you actually sound interested in our program, that, you know, you'll be admitted.
Engineering investigations is really, we're excited for anyone who's interested in engineering. So it's really about showing that you're interested and passionate and you have the basic skills to be successful. We've tried to accept as many folks as We can, and yeah, and so there's definitely been numerous applicants, and there's a timeliness to it because we have to plan for materials and those kind of pieces. The EDL will be offering 2 sessions this summer, so it has the most spaces in it, which are generally 40, 45, depending on the space we get, and EI will be offered once. So there will be fewer spaces available for that. And again, in the same vein of 40, 45 folks. And we are definitely trying to get folks who are passionate. So and that can show off in a number of different ways in terms of how folks are. And we know that transcripts sometimes look differently.
Great. I see some questions about application deadlines. The application deadline for this summer is May 1st, but applications are accepted on a rolling basis. So better to get your application in sooner or later so you can be considered in, this first wave of applications. Another question I see is for residential students, how much freedom is allowed to go off campus? Are you allowed to go off campus? What kind of supervision is involved with that?
So we do require students to sign off on and this is a part of the post-enrollment forms that students are required to complete after they are admitted to the program. It's a supervised permission form for offsite, and as well as an unsupervised permission form for offsite things. I am not 100% sure on what the opportunities will be like for students to fully be unsupervised on campus this summer. That really does depend on what our residential partner has planned for our students in terms of our after the day ends activities. However, if there are any opportunities for students to go off campus, as long as you've signed off on that form, we will be able to grant you that permission. You would also just need to check in with our residential life staff, such as our RAs, before you go off campus on an excursion somewhere to do just that. But we do expect that students will have the ability to go offsite as long as that permission form is signed.
That's great. And Sally, could you speak a little bit about financial aid as far as where the application can be found, when it needs to be submitted by, and kind of how it's given out or decided on?
Yes. So if you are interested in financial aid, while you are completing your application, there is a portion of the application where you indicate you would be interested in a financial aid application. Once you go ahead and submit that application, and you are admitted to our program, you should see the financial aid application populate on your application status portal. You can go ahead and complete that and submit that as soon as possible, because we do review financial aid on a monthly review cycle for each program. And our financial aid is on a first come, first serve basis, based purely on a student or their and I guess their families financial need and need for aid for the program. So we do review monthly. Our first round of financial aid applications will be happening in the next couple of weeks. So if you are a student or a family member that is here that has been accepted to one of our programs and you're considering applying for financial aid, I would highly recommend that you do that right away. There are a few decisions that you can receive in regards to our financial aid. You could be awarded financial aid in most or a full amount. Generally, that is what we offer to our students and families in terms of financial aid package. You may be deferred to another round of financial aid application review, or we may deny your request for financial aid. And that does depend entirely on the pool of financial aid applicants we have. So again, I would just highly recommend that you apply for financial aid right away if you are interested in it.
Great, thank you so much. Can students apply to more than one program?
So yes, students can apply to multiple programs. However, we do not encourage students to apply to more than 2 programs, solely based on the fact that students will have to pick one program, or they will have to pick 2 programs that do not overlap over one another in regards to dates. So like our amazing program directors and program staff have already mentioned, the days that students will be spending in these programs are pretty intensive and do require full daily participation. And so a student would not, for example, be able to participate in the first session of the engineering design lab and, for example, mini med school, because a lot of those dates do overlap. However, if a student, for example, was interested in participating in engineering investigations and then participating in the second session of the engineering design lab program, that is something that is navigable, and that is something that we can definitely help you out with. If you are interested in starting an application for more than one program, though, you will need to reach out to pre-college at tufts.edu, because in order to start multiple applications with us, you will need back-end approval to do that. So please email us at this email address if you are interested in starting more than one application.
Thank you, Sally. I'm wondering if our engineering folks could speak to the academic rigor of engineering investigations, and maybe just EDL too while we're at it.
Sure, I can do engineering investigations first and then throw it over to the EDL folks. So we start right from the basics, right? So we're making sure everyone can understand what's happening. And because we have entering sophomores, right, we have folks who haven't taken physics yet, who haven't taken calculus yet. So none of our work is predicated on having that background. And so you can participate in all the pieces with your fundamental rising sophomore background. But then we obviously show you what else comes next, right? So how do we model these things with different mathematical tools or different science tools, so that you can go on and try these out. It's a lot about what you're investing in it, right? EDL and EDI are not offered for credit, because that would be really confusing. What would that be? You still need to take first year engineering, even if you've done 2 weeks of something in high school. So it's really about making it a really safe space for you to try things out and do things and push yourself, right? So if you want to know how different pieces of engineering work, right, we're creating a space for you to put in the time and people really to support you with trying these different pieces out. So it's definitely, right, there's definitely space in there, but it is what you make of it. That said, engineering investigations, if you've done tons and tons of engineering, is probably is probably not the best space for you, right? If you've had like 4 years of engineering in high school, engineering investigations, right, is much more starting from the fundamentals. And whereas I'll let the EDL folks talk about, right, they get into some really exciting topics.
Before we jump over there, Mare, maybe you could just touch on like what some of the final projects might look like in EI to sort of give a sense of like what that journey is, starting from scratch, and where do they sort of end up to get a sense of the rigor?
Yeah, I mean, right. So folks in this past year, which I was just typing this answer for whoever asked it, just the full disclaimer, right, it was all virtual. So, everything had to be able to be done at home. So we did a lot with CAD and human factors. So, we redesigned things that they found problematic in the world. So somebody redesigned the violin case strap because that was something that was really annoying them, or like, how could you redesign elevators? So, right, they could use the tool. They developed facility with a tool in the CAD space. And they also had, right, a framework of thinking about, human factors, like how could I analyze this, in terms of hand size and the way humans interact with design. So that's one example. They also did, right, a full entrepreneurship exercise. And so some folks in the final project proposed, new cleaning devices for the ocean or new ways to promote food waste. And they were able to come up with like kind of a first prototype there. And we did have folks in the physical space as well. So we had folks who were, we studied a lot about chemical engineering and coffee, right? So trying to figure out different, using engineering analytics. So, comparing pH between Dunkin' Donuts coffee and Kit coffee. So they had, they tried out these tools and learned about these tools throughout the program, and then they had them to use for their final project.
Awesome, great. Yeah, and it'll be, again, we'll be able to incorporate more physicality now that it'll be on campus, as well as including the makerspace. And both Jen and I teach first year engineering here at Tufts. And what we find is we have a wide range of students that come into our courses. So we're actually very well versed in addressing a wide range of backgrounds and challenging students at sort of wherever they're at. So while rigor might not look like differential equations or intense calculus or something like that, we're still able to find rigorous problems and pushing on students' abilities in that. So we'll see students that come in with having done first robotics and have programming experiences and having done AP, but we're still able to find ways to push them in new and interesting ways while supporting students that maybe had none of that. If you've had none of that, then any programming whatsoever is going to feel rigorous. So it's sort of how that experience hits you, I would say, in terms of that rigor type of thing. It's not a one size fits all. Jen, last comments on that?
Yeah, I mean, I was going to say that there is, if you have not had prior programming experience before, we help you learn, parts of Python. You get experience and get into robotics code, I think, very quickly. It isn't intensive, but in such a way that if you've not had any experiences before, you build that up. But if you're coming in with prior programming, like Ethan said, if you're coming with that first robotics experience or other robotics experience, it stays challenging. We keep it challenging for you. By the end of the by the end of the first week, we're actually delving into some topics of robotics classes that I would consider to be, upper level college classes. Some I never hit until graduate school with, looking at some basic machine learning ideas, some computer vision concepts, some robot planning and path planning. And so, it's not like you're going and taking a graduate level class. You're not doing all of machine learning, but it's almost in the way that in engineering investigations is, there's this smattering of some pretty high level robotics concepts, electromechanical concepts being covered, but just in brief, if that makes sense.
And one phrase I'll use is before we wrap this up is sort of onion skinning. So we like to give sort of like the ability to engage in the topic, but maybe you don't actually understand how it works, but the ability to then peel back those layers of the onion and see what's happening under the hood. And so depending on your interest and depth, we can sort of cater to them.
That's great. And we actually got a similar question about mini med school. So EK and Barry, would you be willing to talk about the academic rigor for your program?
Yeah, it is definitely, it is designed truly to give an idea of an experience and exposure to medical school. So one of the things I often say is if this is taught, if you're interested in health and you're interested in careers, possibly in biomedical sciences or health, you will be amongst a whole group of folks nerding out a lot. Nerding out is a phrase I like to say. I mean, you're going to learn about all sorts of cool health topics. You'll be with students who our experience has been are really excited about the topics and learning about the topics. So yeah, it's work, but it's really exciting and cool stuff that you probably, I would bet, have not seen in your school experiences yet, right? I mean, getting to see, human lungs from a patient with emphysema, man. I mean, it's a life-changing thing. And it is rigorous and it is busy. There's a lot going on, but it's all really cool and exciting stuff. And we have support structures set up. And one of the reasons we have small group learning with your TAs and with us available as well is to make sure that the cases will work for students from everywhere. Okay. I mean, this is on infectious disease and bio stuff. We do want you to have the bio background so you know basic cellular stuff, but it's going to be hard. And we do more of explaining it. We give real cases and real scenarios with actual medical terminology, and we ask you to look it up. And the medical students will say, I have to do that too all the time, you know, because that's what they do. So you learn through with them on new cases and topics, and it's really cool.
Yeah, I agree. I think it'll be a really exciting experience for students who at least have a basic background in biology, and you know, you'll come at it from different levels, and whatever you put into it is what you will get out of it. So we hope that you come and are engaged, and you know, contribute to the community as well.
Great, thank you both. I see two here that Barry has volunteered for, so I'll just group them together. Is this a first come, first served program as far as the application goes? And is admission highly competitive with a minimum GPA?
Yeah, so it pretty much is a first served program, barring any red flags, as I see in the question. Yeah, there's certainly some things that would have us perhaps email you or result in rejection, but for the most part, it's first come, first serve. And so with that in mind, it's not that competitive, except for the fact that it's almost full. So as we start to get more and more full, we do start to be a bit more selective, and look for, you know, more passion in the personal statements for the program. We don't necessarily look for minimum GPA, but I do look for like B's in your science classes, mostly biology, just to make sure you have that solid background so you'll be able to follow along.
We want to make sure that you're going to be able to hit the ground running and keep up with the cases and have a good experience and not feel overwhelmed. And otherwise, I see my job in this whole experience is getting you, if you're already liking some of this stuff, to really get you excited about all the opportunity that's in health and health sciences, you know. And hopefully you'll leave with a better idea of where that space may be, if it's to be a physician, or if it's to be a dentist, or if it's to be a researcher or a nurse or what have you, right? I mean, that's the goal. That's the goal.
That's great. Thank you guys so much. I am going to turn it over to our last screen here as we are at time. Thank you everyone for joining tonight and for your awesome questions. If we missed your question or you think of something after this webinar, you guys can contact us by phone, by email, or visit us on our website. You can find all of our program information there, as well as, you know, how to apply, costs to attend our programs, and all the other, you know, little details about you know, the great programs you heard tonight, as well as the other programs that we have running this summer. Feel free to follow us on our social media accounts. We like to keep up to date there. We'll have little reminders about application as we get closer to the deadline. But with that, thank you to all of our panelists tonight for answering all of the questions and providing so much great information. And we hope to see everyone this summer back on campus at Tufts. So thank you all very much and have a great night.